with the US now signing a mineral and reconstruction deal with Ukraine, giving it preferential access to Ukraine's natural resources. Are we witnessing the return of investment ROI phase of the West's involvement in the war? Is this about rebuilding Ukraine or securing long term strategic control over its resources under the guise of aid? And how should other resource rich but vulnerable nations interpret this model of support turning into economic capture? So, the US and Ukraine have finally signed that minerals deal. That deal was supposed to be signed the day Zelensky visited Washington. But Zelensky had other ideas, and there was a public fight on live TV that Zelensky undertook against Trump and Vance and whoever else, and the deal was not signed at that point in time. And now, finally, after some water has flowed under the bridge, the deal was signed, I believe, yesterday or the day before, just in the past 48 hours, sometime like that. And it's a revised deal. It's not the same deal that was supposed to be signed when Zelensky was in Washington. It's a revised deal. The Ukrainians have pushed back against the Americans, and they have extracted some concessions from the Americans. So let's see, in case you want to see, let me put that on the screen, and let's quickly take a look at what this deal is like, roughly. Let's take a look roughly at what this deal is like. Let me remove this from the screen. So the US and Ukraine, this is from CNN. The US and Ukraine signed critical minerals deal after months of tense negotiations. And this came out on the 1st of May. Today is the 3rd of May. So past 48 hours. Yes. So the US and Ukraine have signed an economic partnership agreement that will give Washington access to Kiev's mineral resources in exchange for establishing an investment fund in Ukraine. The US and Ukraine have been okay, they've been trying to hammer it out. Compared to earlier drafts, the final agreement is reportedly less lopsided in favor of the US and is not as far reaching. It stipulates that future American military assistance to Ukraine will count as part of the US investment into the fund rather than calling for reimbursement for past assistance. Okay, that's good. All that. What else? Among the terms of the agreement are full ownership and control of the resources staying with Ukraine. So Ukraine retains full ownership and control of the resources. It doesn't automatically start belonging to Washington. All resources on our territory and in territorial waters belong to Ukraine. It is the Ukrainian state that determines what and where to extract. Subsoil remains under Ukrainian ownership. That's established in the agreement. Um, the details of the agreement have not been made public. Ukraine's prime minister said that the deal will not include assistance provided before its signing, which means that whatever money and arms, all that the Americans sent to Ukraine, that is not to be considered as a debt that Ukraine has to repay to the US. And so on. So yeah, it's a much better deal than before. And it doesn't give Washington complete ownership of half of Ukraine. Zelensky had complained that the previous deal was essentially signing away ownership of Ukraine to the US. And this seems to be different. So the Ukrainians seem to have been tough negotiators, and they seem to have done a good deal of renegotiating and reframing the deal. But the US administration will portray this as a big win for the US to its public. Trump will say that we got what we were asking for, and we spent all this money in the Ukraine war, and we are now gonna get this ROI on that. So it's gonna be spun in a variety of ways from whichever way you're looking at it. So there's gonna be some ROI, definitely. But all the money, let's say about $500 billion worth of money of resources that the US spent during the Ukraine war in assisting Ukraine, that is not going to count as a debt that Ukraine has to pay the West, has to pay the US. So that's a big change from the previous deal. So it's not really about rebuilding Ukraine. It's about exploiting Ukrainian resources as much as possible. That's obviously what it is. And any resource rich or vulnerable country has to be very careful that it doesn't get used in this manner, the way Ukraine has been used. this war, the Ukraine war, has been a proxy war. It's been a war that NATO fought against Russia, using Ukraine as the proxy. And who has come out as the loser in the deal? Obviously, Ukraine. They've lost, I don't know how many people, and you know, they've lost so much territory, and they seem to have lost some amount of sovereignty as well. So there you have it.